Um, so actually, maybe I'll draw something. Have you heard of Raves, the acronym? We're just full of acronyms around here.
So many acronyms. No.
Sometimes I share this with my clients. Okay. R stands for regular eating. This means eating about every 3 to, I almost said 3 to 6 hours. No, try not to go 6 hours. Eating about every 3 hours. A lot of times when you start with clients, their eating pattern is going to be so freaking crazy. They're going to be like not eating breakfast, eating snack, and then eating like 4 dinners, or,
Yeah.
it's just going to be kind of chaotic. And so I often tell clients at the beginning, while they're using Recovery Record, all I care about, all I'm going to be looking at with Recovery Record is not what you're eating or how much you're eating. I'm going to be looking at your meal patterns of regularity. If we can get our clients to eat 6 times a day, that's going to be huge progress for them. But it's also going to help them like normalize their hunger fullness cues, have more consistent energy, manage their blood sugars, blah, 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 blah. So R is usually like first thing we focus on as dietitians working with this population is just regular eating patterns. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Actually, I will share a little bit more and then go on to the A.
Yeah.
Even at this point, like, we don't care if they're eating the same foods every day at the same time. Like, if they're eating an apple at 10 a.m., like, wonderful. If you eat rice cakes with some PB2 diet culture-y stuff, excellent job. Let's keep it going, because at least they're eating something. And they're getting in and they're focusing on the regular eating. Because if we start branching off as a dietitian and we're like, and you need to work on your variety, and you need to work on this, and you need to work on that, they're going to be like, holy shit, this is like so much. I can't.
Yeah.
So if they walk out of your office and they're like, wow, Claire just told me to like basically do what I'm already doing, just like tweak it a little bit, I can do that. That. So we want them to be, we want them to walk away from most of our sessions being like, I could do this.
Yeah.
So regular eating important, which is, you probably, did you watch the meal plan training?
Yeah.
3 by 3 by 3 by 3, right?
Yeah.
So that's phase 1.
I like it.
Phase 2 is adequate eating. A stands for adequacy. And that means, okay, the client they're eating 3 meals a day. They're eating 2 to 3 snacks a day, depending on their meal plan. And now with A, we're working on making sure their meals and snacks are actually their meal plan size, their adequate portions. So that client who was having 2 rice cakes and some PB2, we're like, okay, so you got the pattern down, you got your morning snack in every day, you're killing it. How would it feel to adjust it slightly this week? And what if you added regular peanut butter instead of peanut butter PB2? And they might be like, no way, I can't do that. Okay, great. What if we tweaked and you had 4 rice cakes instead of 2? Could you do that? And I'm like, yeah, I could probably do that. Great, wonderful. Let's just start there, right? So we're just trying to do some tiny little shifts to make it so they're more adequately eating, as well as the pattern is still there. I will say, sometimes clients have such rigidity with their food that when you're on adequacy and you're asking them to eat a string cheese with their apple, they might have a complete like meltdown. Like, I cannot do that type of thing. So in that case, what I would push my clients to do is, instead of adding something this week, which they have made it very clear to you that they cannot do, which is deeply concerning because they're on the outpatient level of care. Can they eat a pear? Because they probably know that a pear and an apple is basically the same thing. And if they could do that, you're kind of smuggling in breaking down some of the rigidity that their brain has. Like, I have to eat an apple at 10 a.m. And now all of a sudden they're going to start eating a pear. And sometimes just making lateral shifts with food, lateral shifts as in like, it's not going to help them with the adequacy. It's the same freaking adequate amount, which is not enough. But it's breaking down some of the rigidity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we have regular eating, we have adequacy. If they've made it this far with you, oh my gosh, that's huge. I mean, I can't think of very many of my own clients right now that are at this stage, sadly. So once you get to V, this is some fun stuff. V is for variety of food. So this is, and a lot of clients will come to you in session 1 and 2 and be like, I am so bored of eating the same thing every day. Or like, I know I'm super rigid with what I eat and I would like to work on like shaking things up and doing things different. And sometimes I like to slow the clients down a little bit and say like, actually, I hear you and I want you to work on your variety as well. But I'm also noticing that you skip breakfast most weeks and your lunches are actually more like snack portions. So I'm thinking if we could pivot and focus a little bit more on the adequacy part. And then once you got that down, then we can work on the variety. How does that sound? And usually clients are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then you help them pivot because variety is kind of a later stage of recovery. And some clients with restrictive eating want to force you and say like, I'm going to get Claire, I'm going to get her working so hard with me on eating apples instead of pears. And she's going to get so distracted that she doesn't even realize that I haven't gained a pound in 6 months. Right? Like they're kind of sneaky sometimes where they're like,
absolutely.
Where they're going to try to tangent you so that you're not focused on like eating enough food because they don't want to eat enough food. They would rather sometimes work on variety, but that's a later stage.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Manipulative.
Yes.
Sneaky.
Okay. So, well, actually, let's go into variety a little bit more. I usually do, and you could do this in your first session just to collect data, but you're not going to use the data until a later date. The data collection is like red, yellow, green foods is what I call a stoplight. So red is like, oh my gosh, I could never eat brownies. That's like a fear food. I won't ever touch it. Haven't eaten it in 25 years and you can't make me. And then yellow foods are like, okay, like I go to Costa Vida or Cafe Rio and I will maybe get the burrito, but that is going to freak me out. I might have a panic attack, but I have done it before type of thing. And then green foods are whatever foods they are currently eating that don't bring them any distress or anxiety. For some of our clients, that is fruits and vegetables. For some of our clients, that's mac and cheese or pizza. It just really depends on what they feel comfortable eating. So the variety piece in Raves is like looking at what they're currently doing with food or what they're currently eating, and then just adding in ideally like a couple specific foods that you guys decided beforehand in session that they're going to do an exposure with. Have you heard of exposure response and prevention therapy, ERP? It's another acronym.
No.
Okay. I'm going to tangent away from Raves for a second and give you another acronym that will help you with the V.
Yes.
Okay, so ERP is a very well-researched therapy that is used with OCD. And sometimes eating disorders are like one branch away from OCD. So this is usually highly effective when you are trying to do food exposures. So let's say you and the client have decided that they have not tried pasta in like a year. They would like to try it again. They're open to it. It's kind of a yellow food. They're super scared to do it, but they think that they could. So you guys are like, great, we're going to do pasta this week. The exposure is the pasta, which is the E. You've already labeled it, but you want to get pretty specific with them of like, what's the meal going to look like? Are you thinking you're going to do 2 fists of pasta with sauce and protein? Is it going to be 1 fist of pasta with a couple breadsticks? Like, you want to get pretty specific on like what it's actually going to look like, and then both agree that of what the exposure is. And once you're on the same page, great. Then I kind of teach them that what's going to happen most likely is their anxiety is going to get probably pretty high. And what they need to know is that with time after the meal, typically their anxiety is going to come down. It's going to come down with time, but I need you to know that this is probably going to happen and you don't need to fear it, because by the 15th time you eat pasta, you're going to start to notice that the anxiety is actually not that bad. You're going to notice that your food anxiety with more and more and more exposures gets to be less, to the point where like you are like eating pasta on a Saturday night spontaneously with your partner. It's like no big deal.
I like that.
So we're kind of like painting a picture for them of what the future holds. And like, this is a good thing. You do want to eat pasta, like, and trying to help them see like the benefits of not having tremendous anxiety while eating. Because some of them are going to be like, why is this freaking worth it? Like, this ain't worth it. Like, that sounds like hell. So you're kind of doing a little bit of coaching around why it's worth it. So at that point, I do a little psychoeducation with them, and then I bring them back and I say, okay, we have the exposure planned. The response and prevention is basically, I'm going to really bring this down a bit. Basically, having a plan in place for what they're going to do after the eating to make sure that they're safe. This is especially important to do the ERP protocol, you could say, when you're working with clients who self-harm or who have suicide attempts. Because what we don't want to happen is you say, great, you have 2 fists of pasta with some Alfredo sauce on top and some chicken. Let's do it on Thursday with your friends. And they say, I think I could do this. Let's do it. And then they do it and they experience this. And they're like, F that, I'm going to go to the bathroom and cut myself. Right. So that's why as eating disorder dietitians, we basically have to be half therapists, because we don't want to push an exposure that then leads to actual physical harm. That part makes sense?
Right. Yep.
Great. So it's nice to do exposures with people. Do they have a friend, a partner, a family member who could eat something with them? Ideally, something the same with them, who knows how to support them during a meal. That's super great if you can get that kind of solidified in your session with the client of what they're going to eat, when they're going to eat, who they're going to eat with. And then come up with the response and prevention plan of what they're going to do after they eat that and they're experiencing a lot of stress. Like, what skills are you going to practice? And like, do you have a plan in place to keep yourself safe if you have urges to self-harm, let's say. And usually clients who have a history of self-harm have talked to their therapist several times about it. They have policy in place or something that they do to help themselves not self-harm. So that's typically already covered. And then for you, it's more so like encouraging the clients to think of like skills that they've learned in therapy that helps bring down the anxiety, like deep breathing. In RO, we have big 3+1, which I could teach you later. Could they listen to calming music? Could they light a candle? Could they go could they have a plan in place right after the food exposure and go out with their friends somewhere where they don't have an option to do anything maladaptive because they're bowling now? So that's kind of the exposure and the plan afterwards. And you're kind of setting up the plan ahead of time. So you have a plan with them in session. They know the picture ahead of time. They just got to basically execute it.
Mm-hmm. And so, say you're putting something like this, you're creating this plan in your session. Do you do any sort of follow-up or, I don't know, close monitoring on this other than just them coming in for their next session and telling you about it?
Log it in recovery record. Tell me how it goes.
Okay. That's what I figured. Okay. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. But definitely follow up next session and see.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, like in recovery record, obviously we're trying to get people to be, you want people to be consistent with it and whatnot. Do you ever just send in little prompts or comments, messages that, hey, looks like we talked about doing this today. Like,
how'd it go?
Hope everything's going well. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We want to, this is a skill that I'm still learning how to do. It's very challenging for me, which is to give my husband and our clients the benefit of the doubt that like maybe they are doing it. And so this past weekend, I had one of my clients and I made a pretty extensive plan for the weekend because she was probably going to be triggered by family members about body image stuff. She didn't log anything over the weekend. So on Monday, I noticed that and I just sent her a message. I said, hey, Hannah, I just want to check in with you and see how your weekend went. Period. Because like maybe it went well, I don't know, but she didn't log anything. And then she messaged me back and she's like, oh my gosh, Kayla, it actually went super great. There was only one triggering comment and I didn't contribute to it and fat shame myself. So it was awesome. So yes.
Right. So while we're sitting back and we're like, oh, come on. Yeah.
Any other questions about variety and like how to use ERP to push clients to eat more variety?
No. But I would assume that if you are in this stage with someone, you'd hopefully be in good contact maybe with their therapist and just like, have a good ongoing conversation about the client and just like keeping them updated with that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I've never had a client cut themselves or self-harm after a food exposure. We just don't, we just want to be careful with it. So yeah, being in close contact is helpful because also it's from the therapist perspective, sometimes we're playing whack-a-mole with our clients and it's like, great, dietitians coming in hot and doing some food exposures with them. But like the therapist can see like, oh, wow, Kayla, since you decreased their restrictive eating with food, up came this other, like now they're checking all the lights in the house multiple times a day and their OCD is like crazy. So yeah, it's good to be in step with the therapist.
Okay.
I was going to say one other thing about variety. Oh, when you have clients, which this did happen to me, and she's like, Kayla, you just don't understand. I'm different. I'm special is what she was basically saying. I know that I should work on my variety, or no, I know I should work on my regular eating and my adequate eating first, like you said, Kayla, but you just don't understand. I've done that before and I really just need to work on variety first and then I'll get there. And I was like, oh gosh, maybe she's right. Okay.
Right.
Sure. And guess what? it sucked. She dropped out. We didn't like do anything. We worked together for probably a year and like nothing really got better.
No.
And it's because, you know, I was focusing too much. I colluded with her eating disorder is what happened. And it's good to,
No.
I share this with you as like a teaching moment because yes, she schooled me. And when we're teaching our clients that it's really important to focus on the regular eating and the adequacy first, the reason why is because there's a lot of research that shows that if a brain is malnourished, it's going to be so much harder to actually do the V, to do the variety piece, if you're not eating enough to begin with. So you're already trying to get a client to basically scare the hell out of themselves and eat a scary thing for them. But if you're doing that with a brain that doesn't eat half of their needs, like that scary moment is going to be so much scarier for them. So I try to do a little bit of nutrition education as to why we kind of need to focus on the adequate eating and the regular eating first. I'm not malnourished though. Look at me. Yes, you are.
Sweetheart, sit down. Sit down.
Okay. So does V make sense? Okay. E stands for eating adequately. Or no, E stands for eating socially. There we go. We already went through adequacy. Eating socially, which is usually very challenging for our clients. That one I usually work with therapists, even possibly closer to than, because a lot of it is social anxiety, which the therapist is working on. So later stages for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
S stands for spontaneity. That's like the moment where their partner's like, we're going to Olive Garden tonight. Get your purse. Let's go. And they're like, great. And then they go. And that's, yeah, pretty hard. They usually want to like plan and look at the Olive Garden menu and like figure out what they're going to eat and look at their calories. And we're like, no, you just like go to Olive Garden and get what you want.
Yeah. Okay. Easy enough. That's
easy enough.
That's way out there though.
Way out there, meaning like that is deep into recovery.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just getting through A or the R and the A is like huge success.
Okay.
Any questions about raves or thoughts?
Now, yeah, so you mentioned in the beginning, just like, this is something that I might draw out for a client.
Yeah.
Not the hill,
ERP.
but yeah, but raves. Is that when you have some pushback of like questioning why do I need to do this, that kind of thing? Or is it something that you end up like preemptively kind of introducing?
I usually introduce it when I feel like it's pertinent. And then 9 times out of 10, the client's like, oh my gosh, that's such a relief to hear that I don't have to do everything right now. Like that we're just going to do one thing. Like, thank God, this is what I need.
Yeah.
So usually they feel very validated.
Yeah. Cause I feel like that is a big thing where it's like, I know you mean we're going to start small, but like having something to kind of like work off of and show them like, no, this is what I mean. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I like raves. It gives me like a, I don't know, it gives me a better connection than to like utilizing recovery record, for example. Yeah. Love it.
Great. Okay. Well, I will stop the recording then.